Okay, looks like we're up and running. So, sorry if I'm misreading all of this to anybody that might actually be watching this, but I had an issue with the live stream earlier. I couldn't figure out if I was actually on. Now I can see that things are going, at least for the moment, how they should go. So, at the risk of being redundant, I'm just going to repeat the things that I mentioned in my last attempt at doing this morning. Um, the lockdown's still in place. Obviously, that's scheduled to go until the 6th of April. Uh, Interestingly, the state of Wisconsin, apparently, where my parents live, has also instituted one of these lockdowns, except theirs goes all the way out to April 26th, which surprises me a little bit. I guess the rate of expansion of confirmed cases in Wisconsin is such that the governor decided it was important to do this and to do it all the way through the end of next month. A month from today, apparently, is when that's supposed to expire. So for now, here in the state of Washington, we have reached 2,580 cases, 132 fatalities. In Pierce County, we're at 155 cases, and we have now gone up to 2 fatalities. Snohomish County is at 634 positive or confirmed cases with 16 fatalities, and King County remains by far the hardest hit at 1,359 positive or confirmed cases with exactly 100 fatalities. Now, I did a little more looking in terms of global figures. Starting here with the United States, we're at 519,899 cases, and we have hit 23,588. Now that's worldwide. Excuse me. That's worldwide figures. 519,899 cases worldwide, 23,588 fatalities. In the United States, we're looking at 78,082 cases and 1,864 fatalities. Excuse me. Now, what I found interesting when I was looking at global figures is that the top three worst affected countries are the United States at 78,082 cases. Italy is number two at 80,589. And China is at 81,285 positive or confirmed cases each. I think the fourth place one was Spain, and they were somewhere between 40 and 50,000 total confirmed cases. Now, Italy is an interesting case. I've been seeing a lot of headlines in the news with respect to Italy and their struggle against COVID 19. They have, as I said, 80,589 cases as of now. But what's more startling to me is the rate of mortality with COVID 19 in Italy. 8,215 is where they're standing in terms of fatalities, and that puts the mortality rate at over 10%. Again, to put that in contrast with the United States, we're sitting at 78,082. And by the way, the top three countries, the spread of the number per country is confined to less than 3,300. Among the top three, China is the worst hit with 81,285. The United States is the third in third place with 78,082. That's just over 3,200. So it's kind of like neck and neck with these worst hit three countries. The rate of increase with the the rate of increase is the worst in the United States by far, with the state of New York, and more specifically the metropolitan area of New York City, being now the epicenter and accounting for over half, if I'm not mistaken, right around half or a little bit over half of all cases being reported in the United States. So, I mean, it's really gone crazy. It's really gotten bad over in New York. The lockdown remains in place in the state of Washington at least until the 6th of April. As I think I've commented already, I anticipate that's going to be extended. Again, if Wisconsin, of all places, has a lockdown in place until the 26th of April, I can expect that we can at least see some extension of that. I really hope not. I want this to end, but it seems to me that it's probably going to be extended. Although, as I go through every day and look at the figures for the state of Washington, it doesn't look like we're experiencing a huge spike in cases. All right, the numbers are getting higher, but they're not getting higher at anywhere near as fast a rate as what we're seeing in Washington. So perhaps things are starting to ease a little bit locally. And I really, really hope so. A lot of people really want to get back to their lives. But in the meantime, there is legislation working its way through Washington, D.C., through Congress right now to provide financial relief for every American. And that's something I'm encouraged to see. Last night, I believe it was, the Senate passed. Was it last night or was it the night before last? But the Senate passed unanimously the legislation that they were working on to help everyone out with this. I've been doing as much research as I'm able to. There's a lot about the way that these bills and legislation are structured that I don't fully understand. What's interesting is that the bill which was passed is not a new piece of legislation. It's called H.R. 748, which was something from back in July. So this is not a new piece of legislation the way that, for instance, the CARES Act, Senate 3548, I think it was, that was new legislation. What we've got in being debated and what passed the Congress or passed the Senate last night was H.R. 478 from July of 2019. The verbiage of the bill itself is it's an act to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to repeal the excise tax on high-cost employer-sponsored health coverage. So if I'm understanding this right, what's being debated and what's being put through Congress now is just an enormous list of amendments to this bill, within which the relief and all the money, the $2 trillion being pumped into our economy, that's where you'll find all this, a list of amendments to a bill that already was signed into law back in July. So the kind of things that we're talking about are a one-time payment of $1,200 to every American citizen, and then there's something called, that people are calling unemployment on steroids, which is that each state obviously is going to directly work with the citizens to provide them with unemployment benefits, but the federal government is providing more money to the states to then be dispersed to the individual citizen. And that has been a subject of some debate. What I found interesting was that there is a provision within this bill to give another $600 per week to every single person receiving unemployment benefits. I've filed for unemployment, and at the moment I'm sort of eating up through my sick time, which is an option that was given to us, as opposed to waiting on receiving unemployment benefits. But if this bill goes through the way that it's written, I might feel incentivized to stop eating up my accrued sick pay and vacation pay and just go with what's being offered by the state, especially if it's going to be bolstered by an extra $600 per week. Now, this particular provision has led to some debate on Capitol Hill. There are some people who are up there saying that if this goes through the way that it's printed, that it's going to result in people receiving more money not to work than they were receiving while they were working. And that's usually the exact opposite. Usually you receive quite a bit less per week in unemployment insurance than you would receive if you were actually working. But if everybody's getting an extra $600 per week, well, that's more than what you'd be making to go to work. And so some people are viewing this as a possible disincentive to go back to work. Now, there's obvious problems with that line of thinking. First of all, a person doesn't get paid unemployment if they voluntarily stop going to work. You have to be fired or laid off. And second, the $600 in addition is only going to last sometime into, I think it's a total of 4 months. All right, so that it's not indefinite. But I wanted to be as specific as I could. So give me 1 second to find where I'm at here. Okay, first of all, the rebates and other individual provisions. This is the actual verbiage of the law itself. It took me a while to find this. I actually had to go to the congressional record. You know, they print out a verbatim record of everything that goes on in the Senate every single day, and I was able to search through and find the exact pages. Starting with the individual payments, this is, sorry if this gets boring, but it's important to be specific. The devil is in the details. So, recovery rebates for individuals. In general, subchapter B of chapter 65 of subtitle F, oh wow, isn't that fun to read, of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 is amended by inserting after section, blah, blah, blah. In the case of an eligible individual, there shall be allowed as a credit against the tax imposed by subtitle A for the first taxable year, beginning in 2020, an amount equal to the sum of $1,200, or that's $2,400 in the case of eligible individuals filing a joint return, plus an amount equal to the product of $500 multiplied by the number of qualifying children. All right, so that's the individual one-time payment that everybody's going to be getting. Now, with respect to this provision for $600 on top of what you're already getting in unemployment, it is right here in section 2104, subtitle B, I guess. An additional amount of $600 in this section referred to as federal pandemic unemployment compensation. And the larger title of that, Section 1, Federal Pandemic Unemployment Compensation. Any agreement under this section shall provide the state agency of any agreement under this section shall provide the state agency of the state will make payments of regular compensation to individuals in amounts and to the extent that they would be determined if the state law of the state were applied, and then in subsection B, an additional amount of $600. So people are out there saying that must be some sort of a drafting error because of the amount of money that would require. I mean, that's a lot of money. $600 per week to every single person across the country receiving unemployment benefits. That's a lot of money. That's an amount that hasn't even been determined yet. So, man, the government's just throwing money, just dumping money on this. So, this is something that's being, this got passed through the Senate as is. So this that I just shared with you is in the bill, which made it through the Senate. Now that's moved on to the House. Now there's a little bit of dickering going on in the House about what they want to add to the bill. I'm not really clear on my civics or social studies. So once the bill from the Senate is amended and sent over to the House, does the House have the ability to add things to it, or do they just have the ability to amend what's already there? If anybody knows the answer to that and feels so inclined, I'd like to know, because there are things that Speaker Pelosi wishes to add to this bill. The type of things that I mentioned when I talked about HR 73, whatever it was yesterday, the Take Responsibility for Families and Workers Act, with all those crazy things, carbon emissions testing for airlines, $15 minimum wage, LGBTQ plus financial literacy, all those weird things that have nothing to do with coronavirus that they were trying to pass into law. They are still angling to get some of these things into their version of this bill. So whenever that makes its way over to the House, they're going to debate it. They're going to vote on it. That could be happening right now for all I know. I'll check. And then another series of votes. I think it has to go back to the Senate for some kind of an approval before it gets sent back to the White House for a signature. I am expecting something to be signed by the end of today. I mean, for Congress to drag its feet on this anymore would be just unacceptable even by their standards. So I'm looking forward to seeing the bill when it actually makes its way to the White House, when it gets signed, and then I can actually look at the verbiage of it for myself. Now, again, I'm no legal scholar. I'm not having a very easy time interpreting all this stuff anyway, in terms of how it's written and what it means for me and for the people that I know. But once it's printed or transcribed and printed out, and I'm able to read it, as opposed to listening to people in the news with their own opinions and their own agendas trying to tell me what it means. That's kind of how I prefer to roll with this kind of stuff anyway. And that's how I've always been. I don't like watching the news. Doesn't matter whether it's far left or far right or independent. I don't like it because you've got people filtering all this information through their own minds and through their own opinions before they report it. So everything's already got an element of spin to it. It's kind of difficult to find information, just raw information that I can understand. And maybe that's why these news outlets are so popular, because I imagine a lot of people are the same way. The verbiage of the law is available for anybody with a computer to find. And I've been doing that every day, but exactly how are you supposed to make sense of it? It's written in such a way that it's like chloroform in print. You can't get through a paragraph of it without falling asleep. So, but at the same time, there are resources out there. The information free of bias is out there, and that's really where I like to maintain my focus. So I don't really have much else to say now. I'm glad that the live stream has been working, at least this time around. So I'm going to go ahead and stop for now. I'm going to do a lot more reading. I'm going to wait to see what developments come of this legislation, because I mean, let's talk about it in real terms. This is money that the federal government is sending to each individual person. Now, this is irrespective of whether or not you're receiving sick pay. It's irrespective of whether or not you're receiving unemployment, with the possible exception that if you're not to be found anywhere within the system, how are they going to send money to you? But the point is, this is just money coming straight to us. Okay, so this is encouraging in the sense that it's going to provide a sense of relief for people who were worried about, am I going to get my bills paid? Are my utilities going to remain uninterrupted? Are my credit card payments going to be available for me to pay? So having the government send this money out as a way to bridge this gap. I still have yet to find any more information with respect to a vaccine, with respect to the hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin combination of drugs that people have been talking about for at least the last week or so, and as being an effective treatment. There hasn't been a lot of development there, except for a lot of people criticizing anybody who's going out there trying to say, hey, this could work, this could really work. There's a lot of accusations of false hope. There's just a lot of typical political bullshit. Anytime any development happens, regardless of which side of the aisle it favors, there's going to be people ready to cast aspersions on it. But I just want to see what's happening. I want to see what's happening. Is this treatment receiving further scrutiny? Are there more controlled tests taking place? What is the information at its current state of development? These are the things that I hope to find. And provided that I'm able to, I'm happy to share them here to anybody that wants to listen to it. So for now, I'm going to sign off. There's more to come today. Be good to each other.